Transition awareness breathing. Feeling grounded for both children and parents is essential for healthy living and learning. Join Eartha Powell on this series for tips and tools for creating a harmonious environment for learning. Transition awareness breathing will help you and your child find an individualized path to tackle change, promote lifelong learning, and discover new approaches to calmness.
Welcome to Transition Awareness Breathing Podcast. This is Eartha. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I invite you to make yourself comfortable. I would like for us to start on an imagery activity just to get us warmed up. So, imagine you had a very special appointment or an engagement that you had to attend. And this has to be you, not your children, not your family members or your friends. It's you. Now, so you get in your car, you drive to the department store, and you went after work. And oh no, the traffic is just packed. And you exit off the highway. And you're driving to find a parking spot. And finally you found one. But the parking spot is pretty far away from the entrance. But, you're not going to give up. And so you're walking pretty fast. You're walking briskly. You get to the door, and the door is locked. The door is closed. It's locked. And the first thing that runs through your mind is maybe, what time did you close? Oh, no, there's a special little sign on the door that says, on this day, the store closes early for mandatory training for their employees. So here is part of the exercise. As you're standing there, looking through the door, the glass of the door, I'd like to ask a few questions because this is what we're going to discuss in the rest of our session. Okay, so reflect on this imagery exercise. What led you to understanding that the door was closed? However silly these questions may be, just kind of answer them in your head. Now, what happened after you discovered the door is closed? What is your next step? How long did it take you to realize that that door was closed? Was it easy or hard for you to realize that the door was closed and you had to do your plan B, whatever your plan B is? And I know this is kind of vague. I just want to set a stage for the emotions that you may be feeling. And so when you got to the door, what were your emotions? What was your initial response, reaction? Okay. And one last question is, did this experience bring out anything positive? Okay, so that's the end of this activity, this imagery activity, because what we're going to talk about and what I'd like to bring to you is a discussion called Doors Closed, Doors Open. And I got this topic and some of the training information from Positive Psychology. It's a a lot of little scenarios, and I thought this would be great to bring up. But before I get started, I'd like to thank Whip Talk Radio for allowing me to have a platform to bring Transition Awareness Breathing podcasts to you. And thank you, Mary Lou and Sam, my producers, for making Transition Awareness Breathing podcast available to my listeners wherever they go. Okay, so what is going on with this doors closed, doors opened topic? As we start our discussion today, there is nothing really new when we hear the old saying, a famous quote. One thing that is constant is change. And that was from a old ancient Greek philosopher. And you may have heard that saying also in maybe some of your leadership or management classes, or maybe if you are in education, you've maybe passed that information on to your students. Change is constant. In order for something to change, think about it. Something has to stop. And so in this activity, and in this mindfulness session with you, the experience of something stopping is, let's use the word, the door is closing. And sometimes that's kind of hard. An experience of doors closing. Maybe it can be related to the loss of a job or a loss of a position. Or shall I say that the door closed on a position that you once had. Or maybe it was a relationship where the doors closed. And maybe it was a move to a different neighborhood, a different part of the country, which may have been exciting, but before the move, big changes, doors closed. And so sometimes, especially with maybe undergoing a job transformation, I would like to call it. Some may call it I lost my job. However you want to term it. There's a little bit of loss, the sense of loss. And you may have been in a relationship. It could have been a romantic relationship. It could have been a friendship, a relationship. And there's a sense of loss, maybe a sense of rejection, a door closed. And traveling along that path of the door closing, you can maybe even remember the experience. We learn, or some of us are learning, how to kind of deal with those emotions. It kind of takes you back. It's like, wow, I was doing so good on this job. I thought I was doing very good. Or I was at this, I was just getting the house all organized. Everything was just where I had it. And then I got this new job, and now I have to move. I have to tell people goodbye. Or, maybe I have to say, I go through this when I get a new car. I know it sounds silly, but, I have to say goodbye to my old vehicle. I remember all the memories, and it's a little bit touching. And I realize that I go through that feeling. And so that awareness and that acknowledgement, I think, is important. I think if we hide from that, or if you give in to someone saying, oh, everything will be all right, or look what you're gaining. It just doesn't allow you to go through that process of loss. And if you are familiar with the stages of death, the stages of loss, it is human. Because we're human, we go through these different phases. And part of that is the separation and the saying goodbye. Now, with that said, let me go back to our exercise. What does that have to do with going to a department store? Well, imagine that the doors to that department store that you envisioned earlier, imagine that was the experience of the loss. How long would it take for you to regroup when you realized that the store was closed? Maybe one thing that would go through your mind is, oh, wow, I was really counting on going to the store. I really like their styles, but I need something quick. And so you go to another store, or you go online. Whatever it is, you come up with a plan B, and all of a sudden you find maybe something better, or you find the same thing but at a better price. So when we're going through the door close phase, I think mindfully going through that and acknowledging our feelings is very important. And then recognizing that going to another job or letting go of an unhealthy relationship, getting a new position opens up so many new possibilities and opportunities and new relationships, and you grow. And then you look back and you realize that point was a door open. When the new experience, when you let go of that door from the past and you came up with a new plan, that new things were waiting for you. How could you have waited so long? If you have only known, you would have done it a long time ago. Has that thought ever run through your mind? That is the door open part of the door closed, door open exercise. Recognize that we do have a choice. We have a choice to remain at the closed door, that point of when things are in the midst of changing. I call it the transition phase, and not do anything and allow ourselves to stir in that phase of change and loss. It is normal to go in that phase, but it's also a choice for us to turn and go a different direction and look for an open door. And sometimes the doors are open. We don't have to really look very far, because all it takes is turning around. It's like when you're on the airline and the flight attendant says, the nearest exits may be right behind you. Another thing to take into consideration is when we go through our new door, our new opportunity, is that we take experiences from our old position or from the old relationships or from the place where we're moving from, and we bring them with us. And so we are more aware and more experienced. And so in the new position with that, when we go through the new door, we go there with a more of a rich perspective of what's going on. We don't feel helpless, or we don't feel insecure or Maybe we feel like we're experienced in that position. When you're going to a new job, oftentimes that those first few months are kind of rough because you're going and establishing a new position in your new job. And so, there's a lot of uncertainty. But once you get the swing of it, wow, you begin to realize, I know how to do a lot of these things. I did this in my old job. And so you're pulling from your past. And the same thing with other experiences that you may be having an open door experience to. So when we take on that new position, when we go through that new door, we can have another choice. We can bring the past with us and continue a conversation on what you could have done, or how bad you were treated, or how terrible a person was. Or we can let that go and turn that and say, this is what I have learned, and now I have a chance to be optimistic and use what I learned in the past to do better in the future. I'm going to ask you some questions now based on the experience of doors open, an experience that where you have maybe gone through a loss or a new relationship, a relationship has closed and you found a new relationship. Now I'm going to ask you those questions again and get something and write it down. These are thought-provoking questions, and if you don't want to respond to some of them, that's okay, but maybe just listen. Okay, here we go. Think about a time in your life when someone rejected you, when you missed out on something important, or when a big plan collapsed. These would be points in your life when a door is closed. Now think about what happened after. What doors opened? What would have never happened if the first door didn't close? I invite you to write down these experiences in a journal, or just think about them if you don't want to participate in writing them. This kind of stimulates your thought. Okay. Next the part is write down the door that closed on you. And now write down the new door that was opened. Reflect on your experiences and respond and reflect on these following questions. What led to the door closing? If you have an idea. And maybe you know now, but you didn't know then. What helped you open the new door? How long did it take for you to realize that the new door was open? Was it easy or hard for you to realize that the new door was open? What prevented you from seeing the new door? What can you do next time to recognize a new opportunity sooner? What were the effects of the door closing on you, and how long did it last? Did you experience bringing anything positive from that experience? What or which character strengths did you use in this exercise? And what does a closed door represent to you now? What did you learn from the door closing? We're almost finished. And is there more room for growth from these types of experiences? And the last one is there a door? Is there a closed door that you still wish to open? End of our exercise here. Thank you so much for participating. I encourage you to replay this podcast and then maybe contemplate a little bit more on those thought-provoking questions and write them down. At the very minimum, I encourage you to contemplate and enjoy your growth, enjoy the doors opening. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you again next time. Have a great day.
Be sure and pick up a copy of Eartha's new book, Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's not just an ordinary coloring book. It features 23 illustrations to stimulate thought, relaxation, and creativity for anyone between the ages of 4 and 94. Increase your positive self-talk energy, unlock new creative paths, transform your time once or twice a week to create beautiful art while strengthening confidence, building positive self-talk, and sensitize self-awareness. Tab Mindfulness, Awareness and Coloring Activities in a Pandemic World. It's available now at Amazon.com.